Welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast. My name is Scott. I'll be your host today. Got a great show for you today. Got another great guest. Going to bring him on in just a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Queen Bean Coffee. Queen Bean Coffee at thequeenbean.com. You can find them there. Now, I know you guys hear me every day talk about how I go to Dunkin' Donuts, and that's true. That's true, but I do go to, pretty much the reason I go to Dunkin' Donuts is just to get myself out of the house in the morning. Everything that I have at home, all the coffee I have at home, I get from Queen Bean. She's a great lady over there. She helps us out with the Ordinary Marathon. She's a sponsor of the race, and I want to thank her for that. And check them out over at thequeenbean.com. Great stuff. As always, you can find this and the back episodes of our podcast at our website, ordinarymarathoner.com. Check it out if you get a chance. You can also find us at the aggregators, places like Stitcher and TuneIn and iTunes. If you like the show, hit that subscribe button. Never miss a new episode that way. You can also leave us a review if you so choose. You can also find the longer versions of the podcast. So I don't put the daily versions up every day, but the longer versions of the podcast, episodes like this and anyone where I have a guest, you can find them over at a YouTube channel. It's called Ordinary Marathoners. Subscribe if you like. We love to see new subscribers. We got about 65. Loving it. Thank all you guys for subscribing. We did put up a new video this past week. We did a little raffle, thanks to Ascension Multisport for giving away 3 months of free coaching with Laura Stebbins. So Laura and I did the raffle on a YouTube video. We filmed it and put it up there. A lot of you guys have been watching it. It's kind of, I don't know, it's fun to do. I got to do more videos, I think. It's a lot of fun. What else we got? Our discussion group over at Facebook called Ordinary Marathoners. Go figure. It's a closed group, so you got to add yourself to it. We'll put you through right away, though. You can join the conversation going on over there. You can also find me on Twitter at Ord Marathoner. That's O-R-D Marathoner. And if you follow me there, I'll follow you back. And check out the Ordinary Marathon. The Ordinary Marathon is our virtual race, 10-day virtual race. We're actually working on a video to kind of describe exactly what goes on and all the different ways you can participate. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be from April 26th through May 5th. The culminating event on May 5th will be a 5K either in person. You can do the 5K in person in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, or you can do it virtually as well. And you don't even have to do the 5K. It's optional 5K. It's just sort of an additional thing that we wanted to put together and do. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're really looking forward to that as well. And I got to tell you, attendance is doing pretty well. Right around where I thought it would be for this point. So, pretty excited, but, we'd like to see you guys register early if you're thinking about doing it. That way we can allow more people to get in on the back end if people are delaying or if people just don't know about it yet and they find out, they want to join, they want to participate, and there's no more medals. So we'd like to be able to accommodate everybody. And, so if you're thinking about running it, do me a favor, just go over, register. It'll make me happy. It'll make my day. All right. With that, I'm going to bring in today's guest. He is a physical therapist, and he's written a book. It's called Runner's Fix, and I read it, most of it at least. I do have to admit, I didn't read every single word, but on my trip to Phoenix, where I tried to do something and didn't finish, I did take it with me on the plane, and I got a good bunch of it read, and I'm going to bring him in right now. Mike Swinger, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
You're welcome. So, Runner's Fix. This is the book that you wrote. Why? I don't know why. I feel like I just want to just jump right into the book. You know what? Let's take a step back. I'm trying to be a good host. Let me give you a little, why don't you give me a little background first? Let's ask you this. So physical therapist. What exactly, how did this come about? Is this what you always wanted to do? Go to school? Give us a little background on Mike Swinger. Who is Mike Swinger?
Well, way to lead out with such a good, all-inclusive question.
I'll give you a broad scope. You can just take it wherever you want.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so a physical therapist. Growing up, I was always an athlete, team sports, pretty much everything, you name it. And I had a couple of knee injuries in high school, and that derailed my dream of playing in the NBA. And And after having a couple of knee surgeries and kind of having recurring issues, I think that's when I kind of got clued into the concept of rehabilitation. And I think I was about 17 years old and finally realized, like, if I can help other people avoid the fate that I had, not that I would have actually made it to the NBA, but it definitely changed what I was able to do. If I can help other people avoid that, then that sounds like a pretty awesome career path. And so I looked into physical therapy, just shadowed a couple therapists, and instantly said, yep, that's what I want to do, and went to school for it, and I've been in practice for about 13 years, and just helping people with all kinds of different issues, muscles, joints, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds great. I know, when I went to school, which is probably, I feel like you're probably a little younger than me. Physical therapy was it was a very high in demand major. It was really hard to get into school. So where did you wind up going to school? How did did you have a lot of programs out there? I don't even know where you're from. So why don't you toss that out? Where are you from originally?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Michigan. I grew up in the Grand Rapids area. I now live in Leelanau County, which is, if you look at Michigan, if you talk to a Michigander, they're going to hold up their right hand to show you where in Michigan they're from, pointing to the hand. So I'm the very, very tip of the pinky is where I live now. Beautiful area. And so, yeah, that's where I'm from. I'm from Grand Rapids, further downstate. I went to the University of Evansville in the very southwest corner of Indiana to do all my schooling. And physical therapy school is definitely competitive, and there's a lot of great people and well-qualified people that don't get in or just have a hard time getting in.
Yeah.
So,
and I can hear, I feel like I didn't have too many injuries in college. I played sports. There's some sort of, once you play and you kind of like really into it and you're really involved and you kind of dedicate so much of your life, like you probably did with basketball, there's something about it that you just like, how do I, even though I'm not going to play anymore, how do I maintain sort of like physical activity, and B, sort of stay within that framework or kind of like lifestyle, be among athletes and have that sort of environment as opposed to being in the cubicle. So there's got to be something to be said for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And team sports was definitely my passion all through college. And but getting out of school and trying to join up with rec leagues or play pickup basketball or whatever just became increasingly difficult. And so that's when I started drifting towards running and the individual sports, things that were a lot more convenient and more predictable. You try to show up to play a game of basketball and you end up on a team with people who don't pass or don't know what they're doing, and it makes for a frustrating night. Whereas you want to go for a run or a bike ride or something, that's for the most part within your control. And so that's really when I started gravitating towards the individual sports and really getting into running. You want to be active, you want to keep a good lifestyle going, and the team sports just wasn't happening so well for me.
I like that you threw in for the most part, and because you threw that in, that means I know that you're a parent. Because I go through the same thing for the most part, meaning I got to pick up my daughter. I got to, is that,
Yeah.
I mean, how many kids you have?
Yeah, so I have 5 kids.
There you go.
My oldest is 7.
So how did you even say for the most part? It's like, if I have a brief moment, I can go for a run.
It's one of those things that, when you go from 0 to 1 kid, it's like a huge lifestyle change, and you go, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. And then you go from 1 to 2 kids and go, oh wow, I thought I actually had it easy, even though I thought it was hard. And then it's just kind of, by the time you get to 5, it's like, okay, the circus is full of monkeys. If I got to
throw another one in there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Life is good though.
So your running career, what kind of, have you been doing races? Are you into doing races, or are you just kind of doing it on your own?
Yeah, I usually get into a few races. I'm not threatening to win my age group typically. I usually do a half marathon every year, usually a couple of triathlons, and those are pretty well spaced out. And again, I'm not looking to win, but just looking to have a goal, have something to work towards. And even doing the half marathon distance, that's something that 10 years ago wasn't in my arsenal.
Isn't it amazing? It's like as we get older, it's like, oh, maybe I'll do a half marathon. And then when you had all the energy and all that, when you were in your youth, you had absolutely no desire to run that far. What is it about? What is it about getting older with us runners? Or it's like, oh, I can do more now. It's like, what happened when we were younger? We could have done we would have been much faster.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's kind of embarrassing to look back on how I spent my time in my 20s and realized how much further along I could be in my triathlon and running, But,
and there's something to be said for like running was always like our punishment, right? People say that all the time. It was basketball, I'm sure, too. I played a little basketball in high school, but yeah, running is the punishment. So it's like, why would I do more of that? And then you get older.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
All right, so now let's talk about this book now.
All right.
So,
Sounds
all right,
great.
like I said, I read most of it on the plane, and I'll tell you what I kind of got out of it, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. So, I enjoyed the introduction and kind of like going through some of the parts you talk about, how people are these days, like a lot of us when we get banged up. We turned to Dr. Google. I think that's what you said. I think that's right. Dr. Google.
I think so. Yeah.
And that, you wanted to put together sort of and really what this is for me. And I feel like I'm going to be using this in the future. Hopefully not, because that means I get injured. It's sort of like us runners, we get banged up. We have little nicks and injuries, and some of them are more, I guess, detrimental than others. But this is sort of a nice little outline of all the different body parts that can get hurt. And then when you get banged up, when you kind of get a little ding, a little calf injury or foot injury or whatever, it's a good resource to kind of go to and find out, all right, what's wrong with me? And what do I do in order to try to minimize making it worse? Is that something that you kind of is that the right takeaway from the book, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you really hit the bullseye there. Because as runners, if you're going to be a runner, you're going to get little aches and pains, things that come up. You think about team sports. You might roll your ankle or something. It's pretty obvious what you need to do. Or you play football, you get hit and you separate a shoulder. Those are pretty blatant things. But as runners, we experience a lot of, I guess, gray area type things. Things that okay, I'm not sure. Is it a stress fracture? Is it something I got to really be concerned about, or do I just need to take it easy for a couple of days? Do I need to see a doctor? This and that. And so, really, the point of the book is body part by body part, trying to sort out the different common issues that runners face and what's going on. And then as long as it's not a full out stress fracture or something really bad, then here's what you do about it. If you can sort it out yourself, then fantastic. So it's not a book that I meant for people to read cover to cover, but has to be like a resource in the future to
right.
Sort that stuff out.
And I think that's exactly how I intend to use it. By the way, thank you. You donated a copy of the book for the Ordinary Marathon, which is in April and May, and we'll be giving that away as a gift. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. Glad to.
Yeah, it's very, very generous. I love, we wind up getting like, a whole bunch of things to give away. And this is it's a nice little, I think any runner could appreciate this. Cause like I said, you just throw it on the shelf, and then when you need it, you can just bring it down. And it's, I admit that I am sort of I am inclined these days, if something gets hurt, I turn to the internet. Now, do you find that the internet is getting better when it comes to having answers for this stuff? Or did you just feel like, this, at least, if I look up, if I have a knee injury and I look it up, I could wind up getting a really horrible answer of what to do. And that at least we have a spot here, a place, where I can now say, hey, I know that this guy has a qualified opinion. I'll refer to that instead. Do you find that the internet is actually getting better, or it's just not reliable?
Yeah, I think that they're still all over the board. I think that people who really know their stuff and really know what they're talking about are becoming more accessible on the internet. Like the guys that I look up to in the medical world, you can get a hold of their stuff on the internet now, which is fantastic. But there's still a lot of just yahoos out there putting out very unqualified advice. And so I don't know if it's getting more reliable. I think reliable information's out there, but how do you know? And so, that was definitely a huge motivation for me to put this stuff in print.
Yeah. So now, is this more? Would you say that the what am I thinking here? I guess the source of all the information that you've put in the book, would you say that the source is more from your educational background, or is it more from your experience?
It's more experience. It's very anecdotal. But just being in the medical world, you got to have an ear to the ground as far as what the research is showing, and that's definitely where provides the framework for what I do day in and day out. But a lot of the stuff I talk about in the book is not stuff that has big concrete medical studies behind it, but it more comes from just like, for instance, I'll go visit a high school cross country team and have, say, 30 of their kids just get in line and do quick screenings, and I start to see some patterns and say, okay, you got 10 of these kids with knee pain. It's right here. And look at that. They're all weak in this one area here. Okay. Have all of them do this one exercise. And, a bunch of others having shin splints. Well, look how tight their quads are. Or what, there's things like that. So that's really more where it comes from is I guess the experience with that.
Right. And that's kind of an interesting way to look at it too. You wonder if, if sort of their coach or what they've been taught, or maybe like the shin splints, maybe it's like, maybe they always go, they run up a giant hill or something, or they're, I don't know, maybe something's causing that they're all, getting the same injury. That's kind of an interesting observation.
Yeah. And that's usually a conversation I have with the coach afterwards. Say, hey, half your kids are showing me this. What the heck are you doing? And they'll usually say, oh, well, we're doing this and this and this in our core routine that we do. And I go, okay, well, don't do that one, do this one instead. And that should help alleviate that. And there's usually something that's standing out.
Yeah. And the one thing that I recall sort of from my era of, say, playing football in college was, we did a lot of static stretching before games, before practice. And then later in life, it's like, it seems like now there's like a big, and I don't know what this is based off of, but now it's almost like, all right, if I go for a run, it should be more dynamic stretching. And A, am I right? Maybe I got that from Dr. Google. And B, can you tell us the difference sort of between the two, and, and sort of, I guess, what would be recommended? If I'm going out for a run, how, and in reality, I'll admit, I don't stretch. Like, I don't even stretch a little. Like, it's really bad. Like, and I know it's a problem, but, can you give us like sort of am I right from coming from that angle, and what should I be doing besides nothing?
Yeah. Well, you sound like you're like what 90% of other runners who just want to lace up and get out there and pound the pavement, right? Yeah, we're all guilty of that. Yeah, goodness, this could be a whole dissertation right here, but I'll try to consolidate it. So yeah, static stretching is where you hold a lengthened position for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever. And that has its place. But the thing you got to be concerned about there is if you do that on a muscle that's not warmed up, you could be risking some damage to the muscle. And the other thing is when you do a static stretch and you hold it for a while, that will actually neurologically inhibit the muscle. So the muscle is not getting the input that it needs, knowing when it's supposed to fire. And so rarely do I recommend static stretching before activity. If you've got a really tight muscle and it's a muscle you need to work on, then after activity, totally fine to do that. When the muscle is warm, when you don't need that muscle to be performing very well afterwards, static stretching can have its place in certain things. Dynamic stretching is definitely what I recommend. And, you could get, even if it's just taking 3 to 5 minutes, as you're on your way out the door or your first few steps, it doesn't have to be super complicated. And that's a big part of what I, again, try to highlight in the book is saying, hey, if you've got knee issues, you don't need to spend a half hour stretching, but here, do this one stretch in a dynamic way and see if that makes a difference. So, yeah. And the other thing to think about too is, we think about stretching as just, okay, gaining flexibility. But when you stretch dynamically, you're actually increasing the nerve input to the muscle. And so essentially you're teaching your body how to move correctly. Because if we just go out and run and we don't really put time or effort into teaching our body how to move, the running form is there. And so stretching really is teaching your body how to move. And that's another way to really think about it. So
Man,
is that,
you almost convinced me. No, that's just totally out of laziness. This is just one of those things. And now, so, all right, let's say, how am I going to put this? All right. So I have a good friend of mine who tried to run the Phoenix Marathon and only ran 17 miles before he DNF'd. You might have heard of him. I don't know. Let me ask you this. Like a stretching, see now I'm actually like turning this whole interview into for my own benefit. This is what happens when I get a physical therapist on the.
Hey, fire away, man. Fire away.
All right. So let's say my friends, I would say like he totally hit the wall and his entire legs were like shot. Calves, hamstrings, quads. Now is this something, knowing that my friend doesn't stretch at all, similar to me, I might say, knowing that he doesn't stretch at all, do you think that a stretching regimen or say yoga or anything like that is a necessary part to sort of add to the routine? And is that something that, that should be sort of part of any runner's routine?
Yeah, well, do you think we could get your friend on a three-way call here to try to talk?
No, he's not around.
Oh, okay. So yeah, absolutely. I think there's very few of us that are so genetically gifted that we can get away with that for our whole career. And so I think for any runner, it's worth it to find your own routine, even if it's not taking a half hour, even if it's not, going and doing some blatant yoga thing, even to just take 10 minutes at the outset of every run or every day. It's so worth it because again, when you're running, your brain is controlling everything. Your conscious mind is just saying run, and your brain is doing all the coordinating. And as you fatigue, then your brain starts to say, oh, I can't rely on that guy anymore. Who can pick up the slack? And then you kind of develop these bad habits, these bad patterns to the point where then certain muscles just get burned out and finally say, I'm done, forget you. I'm going to cramp up or, whatever misbehaving he wants to do. And so that's essentially, fatigue, poor nutrition, whatever other factors compounded by whichever muscles are being overworked or not utilized properly. And stretching is a big part of getting those things to balance out. So you're, not susceptible to that. So
how, would you say, so in your experience, say people who are more flexible or, as opposed to like, my friend, let's just say me, is very, very like stumpy, I would call me. Short arms, short legs, 5'9", 220. Do you find like people that are more like kind of like lanky and sort of like, I don't know, plastic, are they less likely to get injured, or is it guys that are sort of, I guess tight and not flexible? Is that a fair statement or no?
I think everyone's susceptible, but yeah. I think that I'm built more like a football player than a runner, quite frankly. So I think guys that are built a little more, I guess, rigid, a little more muscular. Is that a better way to put it?
There you go.
More
all right.
Yeah, I
husky.
think we need
Let's
to
go husky.
There we go.
All my genes when I was a kid were husky.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're more susceptible to, tight muscle type injuries, and so that can be your knees, that can be calves, that can be quads, things that maybe like you probably don't have as many, say, like foot issues as maybe someone who's more lanky and not as muscular. Right. So I think susceptibility is the same, but I think that it looks a little different, and so the need is still there. And can I add one more thing to that I could have mentioned earlier?
Sure.
So one of the things that, just in thinking about dynamic stretching versus static stretching, one of the things that usually gets overlooked is the motion of the joints themselves. So if you just take the muscles away, you have these big, strong ligaments that hold all your joints together. And those are called your joint capsules. And especially for guys like you and me or people who are getting up there in age, really loosening up those joint capsules is really beneficial for just running more fluidly. And dynamic stretching will accomplish that or will help that.
Yep.
Static stretching won't touch that. And so I think that's one other benefit you get from that. So, yeah, I just wanted to add that in.
Yeah, You wouldn't be the first very qualified person to tell me I should be stretching. Which, and I have to ask, I ask him, I always ask because it's like, it's just like I need that, I'm waiting to find that one person to say, no, you don't have to. Good. I haven't been doing it for years. So as a physical,
should we start a petition or something?
I know, right? I just need to find one. Find me one doctor who says I don't have to stretch.
Yeah.
So I don't have to do it. So as a physical therapist, what would you say, what sport brings you the most clients? Like when guys, girls come in the door, is it running? Is it soccer, football? What do you see most injuries from?
Yeah, well, I think just because of I've sort of, I guess, specialized more in runners lately, but even early in my career, I think runners were probably the most common. Runners and triathletes, and I think the reason being is, and again, I've sort of had time in both worlds. As a basketball player, football player, you tend to you roll your ankle or something, and you just want to tape it up, rub some dirt on it, and get back out there. We tend to be much more stubborn about injuries, whereas most of the runners that I've worked with are just incredibly diligent about taking care of their bodies, and when something's not working, really getting it looked at and getting it taken care of. So, really, I'd say runners are probably the most common, I guess, sport. Yeah. Athletes that I've had the chance to work with.
Yeah. So. I would, like most football players twist their ankle. They're not like, just wrap it up, just tape it up, and then I'm done. But if you're a runner and you twist your ankle, it could be concerning. What about so do you see, cause I know you delineate in the book, you delineate sort of and you mentioned sort of like those tissue injuries, like muscle, like the joint capsules and all that stuff. Like what kind of, do you also deal with, say, broken arms? I wouldn't say, maybe for cyclists you would see a broken arm, but, probably, I doubt, runner's not going to come with a broken arm. Maybe they would. Who knows? Get hit by a car. But do you deal with those injuries as well?
Not real common for sure. And for one, if you see a runner with a broken arm, then you just look at him and say, okay, we got much bigger issues going on than your broken arm, right? Maybe you got to work on your balance or coordination or something, You
got to look both ways when you cross.
Yeah, exactly. So, someone breaks an arm, they fall off a bike or whatever, then you got to let the bones heal before you really do anything. And then quite often what you find is there's some muscle injury as well that you got to sort out through some massage work, through some targeted stretching, and then usually they're right back at it, and they really don't require that much work for that kind of an injury.
Gotcha. So going back to the book, when did you write it? When did you put it out? How long has it been on the shelves?
Yeah, so the book just came out in October. Yep. It's available on Amazon, a couple of local bookstores here in Michigan. Hopefully, getting it more spread further. So end of October is when it came out.
Gotcha. So my audience, you guys can find it, and I'll put a link to it certainly on the podcast. You can probably find it. So you find it on Amazon, and it's worth it. It's worth I think it's definitely worth having on the shelf. And I got to tell you, so I've had I would say a self-diagnosed stress fracture, and I treated it. I hate to tell you, I Googled it, and I was like, wow, this is exactly how it feels. And it was like 6 to 8 weeks rest. I took the 6 to 8 weeks rest, and it was gone. And the one thing I remember reading was like, every once in a while you might feel that in the future, and it might not necessarily go away. And it really hasn't. Every once in a blue moon, I'm like, ooh, that's still kind of there. But it doesn't really inhibit me anymore. And so I had that. I had a little plantar fasciitis. I had I had calf injuries when I first started. But we did have a guy, and actually, now that I think about it, I wish I would have known, I wish I would have, reminded myself I could have taken what he said verbatim, but we had a guy in the group. He's training for his first marathon. I don't even think it's his first marathon, but he's training for a marathon in 2 weeks, and he gets like a little pull in his calf. My thought was rest it, roll it. There's the whole rice, right? All the runners know the rice thing. That's right? Rest.
Yeah. Rest, ice, compression, elevate.
Yeah. And is that like a typical? What would so if I came to you and I said I got a marathon in 2 weeks, and my calf is acting up and it feels like a little strained, like not torn or it's just annoying calf. What would you recommend? Rest? Would you recommend just get off it? What would you recommend? Obviously, I'm not there for you to diagnose it, but
yeah, I mean it's a great question, and it's definitely speculative, not seeing the person in front of me. But I think the good thing is, 2 weeks out, you're hopefully tapering. Hopefully, you're already kind of dialing things back a bit, and so that would definitely be a time I'd say like, okay, hey, let's go no impact for the week. Yeah. And let's rest it. Whatever, if you got some compression socks, wear those. Let's do some targeted massage to try to get things loosened up as much as possible. And let's go no impact. So elliptical, bike, swim, whatever you want to do to keep some cardio, keep your muscle tone going. But let's go no impact for a week, and then let's just
see where
test
it is.
The water there. Yeah,
I actually, I feel like I checked some of those boxes in my recommendation, Dr. Me. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I told him to stay off it totally. But then again, I don't want to get sued, Anyway, no, I think that's really cool. I'm actually going to make sure that he listens to the podcast now just to get some professional advice. But, I think it's interesting because a lot of people said the same, pretty much the same thing. And do you guys, do you do a lot of like the foam rolling and stuff like that? Is that like still a big thing? If I have like a muscle injury, is that, you said massage, so it's kind of similar, right? So I'm assuming like you do a lot of like, that's a lot of the recommendation, I guess, these days is if you have a muscle injury, get out the foam roller. It seems like everyone loves the foam roller.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's something that wasn't emphasized much a decade or two ago. And no, I think it's a great thing. First line of defense. Yeah, try the foam roller. If you can take care of it yourself, then that's a great way to go and not have to go see somebody. So. If you can knock it out and it feels better in just a few days of that, or then that's a great way to go. So I think it's helpful for everyone to have a roller or some sort of massage tool on hand.
So personally, what have you been up to? Are you have any races in the near future, or you triathlons or anything like that? What's Mike doing in the next few months?
I'm signed up for a half marathon Memorial Weekend. It's sort of the big local community race here in Traverse City, Michigan. It's called the Bayshore. Runs right along Grand Traverse Bay, so it's just a beautiful spot. So half marathon there, and then I have an Olympic distance triathlon middle of June, and that's really it for now. So I'll probably try to get into another triathlon later in the summer.
Yeah. Are you on Zwift?
I'm sorry?
Are you on Zwift? Do you know Zwift?
Zwift.
The bike trainer? No, oh, man. Got to get you on there. Do you train indoors on the bike at all or no?
I do. Yeah, we've got a foot of snow on the ground here in northern Michigan. I'm in Massachusetts. I got my bike on the trainer, and that's a pretty regular thing this time of year. Yeah, so
Zwift is like a computer program that you kind of dial into, and it's like a little social. We had a guy, Ken Knoll, who's does look like a cycling group called Dirt, and it's I don't know, Zwift is like a platform for bike riders on the trainer. It's pretty cool though. I enjoy it. So if you were on there, I would have followed you, but you're not. So where can I find you, Mike? I know we met through Facebook, so you have a Facebook profile, but if I'm reading the book and I have a question, where can I find Mike Swinger?
Well, my website is runphys.com. That's spelled RUNPHYS.com. And that's really the hub for things. It's mostly a glorified blog right now, but there's hopefully more resources being added to that as far as like different types of workout routines and a way to kind of assess your own running form and stuff like that. So it's that's the website. That's the main place. You can shoot me an email through that site or on social media. Oh, and I can say you can also you can sign up to be on the email list. So anytime I publish a video that goes onto YouTube or publish a blog post, that just gets emailed right to you. So you can subscribe to that, which I definitely recommend people doing for free. And otherwise, social media on Facebook and Twitter, just search for at Mike Run Phys, and then also on Instagram, just Run Phys, RUNPHYS. So. Again, I'm not the most active on all those, but yeah, shoot me a message on any of those platforms, and I'll definitely love to have a conversation with you.
Excellent. And the book is called Runner's Fix, and it's a do-it-yourself guide to running pain-free. And it's, like I said, it's just a good, if you're a runner, it's good to just throw it on the shelf, and just in case something happens, you get banged up, and you want to figure out, is this something that you have to worry about? Is this something that you can treat? Or is it something that what do you have to do to get back into shape? It's definitely a good resource to have. And Mike, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. Interesting talk. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it, Scott. And tell your friend I said good luck and best wishes next event, right?
He says thank you. All right, Mike Swinger, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for coming on. We'll be back again next week. I have a great guest for you guys next week. Mike Riley, the Iron Man voice, is coming on. Don't ask me how I booked him. He's got a tough act to follow, though, here after our podcast here with Mike. So with that, always remember, when it comes to running, I'm no expert. I'm just ordinary.